Hello, this is Dr. Bacon again. This is part 2 of orientation to NUR 540, Financial Management and Healthcare. And I am the course professor again for 540. And this video will be going over information specific to clinical. You have 42 clinical hours for this class, and you've already got your preceptors set up for the course. I want you to be aware that I will be sending letters to your preceptors this week, and I will be sending them the course objectives, the syllabus, the course calendar, and I will be letting them know that you will be coming up with your clinical strategies to meet the clinical objectives with them, and you will be working on them in clinical. Clinical may begin on Monday, January 14th, which is the first day of class, as long as you have been cleared to begin. You will be receiving notification from Emily Watkins as well as myself. I am the person that you need to hear from. The final person you need to hear from to know that you're ready to begin clinical. I checked it yesterday. I think there's 3 people that still have some things that need to be completed. So if you get a message from Miss Watkins, please immediately tend to that information, because you will not begin clinical until all of those things are done. For example, I think there's one person that needs hepatitis B, the 3rd dose. Somebody else needed some sort of documentation of completing orientation at the clinical site. All of these things are requirements for the School of Nursing, but they're requirements for the clinical providers that we need to follow. We have a few things like your CPR and your immunizations and things like that to keep up to date that we do for UNCG, but the vast majority of the requirements come from our clinical partners, and we just have to follow it. That's just the rules, and that's why we start in October of the semester prior to spring to get you up to date. So please, when you get those messages from Emily and from me, please respond quickly. When I send the email letters to your preceptors, you will be copied, so you will have that same information, and that way you'll be able to hit the ground running and get started as soon as you begin clinical next week. So once you get the okay letter from me or the okay email from me, you will then be ready to begin your 42 clinical hours. Ideally, we would like for you to space those clinical hours over the course of the semester and not try to do them all at once. We do realize that some of you work on Monday through Friday schedule, which makes it difficult to do clinical with your preceptors, many who work a Monday through Friday schedule as well. However, we do have these requirements and we have to meet them. So I do understand that there may be times where you take paid time off in the form of vacation or whatever type of holiday vacation time you have, paid time off in order to do this, and that might be a little bit bigger block of time. For example, a whole 8-hour day is okay to spend with your preceptor as you can arrange it. The goal of clinical is to have a real world experience where you can learn about finance with someone who does finance in their job. This is the one course where I'm very, very specific about the preceptor that you're assigned to, because you need to have a preceptor who has responsibility for a budget. If you don't have somebody who has staff that report to them and a budget, really you cannot apply a lot of things that we learn in this class. So whereas most of our other courses are much more broad with the preceptors that we were expect, that's why when you got those emails from me, why that was that way. So it is expected that when we learn about things in class, that you will then sit down with your preceptor during clinical time and go over it. For example, when we do staffing and scheduling and we talk about how we calculate the number of employees that you need in order for your unit to operate. Well, you get a budget of FTEs or full-time equivalents, but you will then take that budget of positions and you will use them to calculate how you're going to put them into your staffing plan. So for example, if that's what we're talking about in the particular week in class, then I want you to sit down with your preceptor and ask them, hey, can you show me how you do your staffing plan? Or if we're looking at variance analysis, hey, can you show me your budget and how do you handle variances? What do you do? It is my hope that all of you will be able to attend at least one budget meeting with your preceptor. That may not be possible, and if it's not, it's not. But if you could try to do that, I would love for everyone to have the opportunity to sit down with their preceptor and the fine arts person and the preceptor's boss and all the people at a budget meeting so you can see how that works. If not, just ask your preceptor about it and they can explain to you what happens. But I would like everyone to really try to do that. And I will, again, be putting that in my email to your preceptor. All right, so as far as clinical requirements for the course, you have specific objectives. We, as the MSN administration faculty, have come up with clinical objectives that cover all of our MSN admin courses. So you will have the specific objectives for the course. And if you give me just a minute here, I'm going to go over to my Canvas site and try to bring those up. Trying to bring up one of the emails that I just sent out to you guys about your preceptors. And I'm not pulling it up, but I'm going to continue to look at it as I talk to you a little bit. So let's see, I think I might have it in Canvas. The Canvas site will be opened up for you shortly. Let's see. Go to modules and talk about clinical. So the reason I'm spending some time on your clinical objectives is because in your first assignment, here we go. In your first week's assignment, you need to come up with the strategies to meet those objectives. So we have these 5 general objectives that cover all clinical courses, and then you have to come up with the strategies to meet them that meet the specific course. So of course, for this class, your strategies have to be to meet the financial learning that you need to do. So for example, clinical objective number 1, establish collaborative relationships with nursing leadership and interprofessional team members in the healthcare organization. So that's a pretty broad objective. Possible strategies for meeting that for the finance course include attending a leadership meeting with your preceptor to observe the process of the budget and budget variances for the fiscal year. Fiscal planning is probably underway for budgets. Depends on what calendar your organization follows. If they are on a July fiscal year, they're about halfway through the year. If they're on a calendar year, they're just starting a brand new budget. So attending a meeting with your preceptor, or just meetings is the better way to put it, to observe the budget process is one possible objective. Then you might want to spend a day. A second strategy might be spend a day with the chief financial officer and observe their role. How does their role fit in with the nursing leadership at the unit or the micro level, the unit, the department, and the rest of the organization? Not everybody's going to have the opportunity to meet with the chief financial officer who's over the whole organization. So what you might want to do is schedule a day with the budget person that works with your nurse leader. So ask your preceptor, who's the budget person that you have your budget meetings with? All leaders are going to have to meet on a regular basis. I used to do it once a month when I was a nurse manager, where you sat down and you went over your budget for the previous month and you had to explain why you had variances and things like that. So arranging a budget meeting. The second clinical objective is analyze the structure and function of the assigned healthcare organization and the effect of this structure and function on the leadership and the interprofessional team. Possible strategies that you can use related to finance might be explore staffing options for the unit and develop a staffing plan with my preceptor. Discuss with my preceptor how staffing plans are created and how day-to-day staffing is managed. So you can talk about in your clinical journal how you did that. Clinical Objective 3 is to evaluate the roles of the existing and emerging nurse leader and the interprofessional team in the assigned healthcare organization and their effect on the achievement of nursing and patient outcomes. A broad objective. Some possible strategies that you might put on there is 1. Spend part of the day with the departmental manager and discuss the challenges with managing patients' accounts and insurance. Another possible strategy, meet with the preceptor and other nurse managers to understand how they staff the variable budget. A variable budget is the part of the budget that we can manipulate, and how they plan for the fixed budget, the part of the budget that they can't manipulate. 3, attend budget planning meeting with the vice president of nursing, chief financial officer, or someone at the senior executive level. So these are possible strategies, and all of these are listed on the Canvas site. Clinical objective number 4, examine your own leadership style and the fit with the assigned organization. How does this fit with finance? Well, you might want to shadow key nurse leaders in your organization and understand their leadership role related to finance. You may want to, another possible strategy is discuss with your preceptor how your leadership style fits with the organization of where they work. Clinical objective number 5, the final one, is identify your own strengths and areas for growth as an emerging leader. Well, this is all going to be directly upon you. What things are you strong in and what things do you need to work on related to finance? One possible strategy may be understand the components of the nursing unit budget. One possible strategy may be strengthen my knowledge and ability to create a safe and efficient staffing pattern for a nursing unit. So these are all listed on your Canvas site in the course, but I wanted you to be aware that this was going to be due in week 1. In the first, I gotta look. It's either week 1 or week 2, whatever it says on the Canvas site. And once you have these strategies, then these are the strategies that you report on when you turn in your clinical journals. So you will turn these strategies into me, and that will be an assignment, and you will get feedback from me, and you will know once they are approved. Other important things related to clinical that you need to know about. You've already identified your preceptor. You will sit down with your preceptor on day 1 and you will talk about goals. You will bring the clinical objectives that I have given you with you, and you will talk about strategies that you've come up with, and you will mutually with your preceptor agree upon the strategies that you're going to work on. You will work with your preceptor to plan those appropriate strategies to meet the goals. You will take your own responsibility for your learning behavior as you set up what you're going to do with your preceptor each time. So for example, you're going to be responsible for being professional, seeking guidance from your preceptor when you need things, responding to constructive criticism if that occurs. Your preceptor is your gatekeeper to the organization. They are going to look at your learning outcomes and your strategies with you and help you with experiences to meet those types of things. For example, if you want to meet with the departmental budget person, they're the person to give you the email address, the contact information, the introduction, whatever it is in that organization to work with that individual. So they're your gatekeeper to all those experiences. So some of your clinical day may not be with your preceptor. It may be something that your preceptor set up for you. For example, one of those days might be a 4-hour shift with the budget person, or a 2-hour meeting. You may spend several different days shadowing other nurse leaders to see how their budgets work on their units or how they do staffing. But your preceptor has to be the person that arranged it, and you either have to be with the preceptor or with the designated person that your preceptor set you up with when you're in the organization. The preceptor, again, is your facilitator to help with planning for the experiences during clinical. They'll provide input to you and to me as the professor as far as how you're doing. You will have them fill out a feedback form, but I will also contact them, and I will meet with the student and the preceptor as needed during the course. My job is to make sure that we have preceptor assignments, and we've already taken care of that. I will review the learning outcomes and objectives with you as the student and approve them. I will meet with the preceptor and the student as needed during the course. Sometimes we don't meet at all. Sometimes we meet more than once. It depends on the student and how they're doing. My job is also to read your clinical journals and to give you feedback, written feedback towards your learning objectives. I will work with you and the preceptor in coming up with a summative final evaluation in the course. I will be available to you and your preceptor in consult for whatever you need during the semester. And it's my responsibility to give the final clinical grade. For clinical, it's pass, satisfactory, unsatisfactory. You don't get a letter grade for the clinical portion. And how I do that is using input from the student journals and the preceptor evaluations. Dress code during clinical, it is very important, particularly if you work in the place where you're doing clinical. You need to make sure that you are distinguishing yourself as in the student role. So you need to wear your student name tag, not your work name tag. You may have to wear a badge that lets you get access, but as far as like an ID badge like this, I took it off. Hang on. Took off my jacket. I want to show you what mine looks like, if I can find it. Oh, here we go. Here's my name badge. So if you don't already have one, you need to get one. You can go to any uniform shop. It doesn't necessarily have to say the logo for UNCG, but it has to identify you, your credentials, and that you're a student. That's very important. So put this back on since I took it off my jacket. And so I would need to make sure if I was in the student role that I always had this on. As far as clinical dress, you should dress as your preceptor dresses. If your preceptor wears scrubs every day, then you can wear scrubs every day. If you're in your workplace and you're in some other type of dress, then if you've got street clothes on, it would be important to wear a lab coat and again, your ID badge at all times. The practicum journal, again, is the documentation of the practicum experience for this course. In addition to accruing your hours and documenting the experiences, we need to see progression towards meeting your established objectives. And that's why we have you do such in-depth documentation. We are not out there on the clinicals with you. Therefore, we need that information in order to determine if you're meeting learning objectives. And this information, again, is all in the Canvas course. It is available to you if you have any questions about clinical. For many students, clinical is the most fun part of the course. And it's our philosophy in the MSN admin program to have sufficient clinical hours so that you can begin to utilize and demonstrate some of the skills that you're learning in the classroom, in our online courses, and to have the ability to see how those things work in the real world. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know, and thank you for your attention. Again, I think the clinical is going to be very exciting. You're all in a number of really interesting places, and this will be interesting feedback when we do discussions and you talk about some of the things that you do. Thank you for your attention, and again, welcome to NUR 540 Financial Management.